The day before our wedding anniversary, I was brutally murdered and dismembered. Meanwhile, my husband was celebrating with his mistress, enjoying themselves. When my husband found out he had hung up on my last desperate call for help, he went crazy. He almost strangled the killer to death, crying on the ground, begging for my forgiveness. But it was too late, I was dead, and my body was mutilated. Before being tortured and killed, I called for help, holding back the pain of being hit by metal objects. My fingers trembling, I dialed the emergency contact number, praying in my heart for Mike to pick up. But the call was heartlessly hung up, and I was exposed. The enraged killer crushed my fingers, then slashed my neck's major artery with a knife, blood spurting like a fountain. He hacked and dismembered me like chopping meat. As I neared death, my only thought was what would happen to my loving husband and our newborn child. With a determined soul, I slowly drifted back home. The bright lights at home were a stark contrast to the dark and grim warehouse where I died. I gazed greedily at the warm and bright surroundings. Tomorrow would have been our 3-year wedding anniversary with Mike, and now that I was dead, I worried about how sad he would feel. Then a woman emerged from the kitchen. She gently tied up her hair, wearing the bunny apron I always wore. Humming a tune, carrying food, she turned around, revealing a familiar face. She was the impoverished student I had been supporting, also my husband's student. I was stunned, a painful guess surging inside me. The romantic atmosphere at home was a world apart from the dark and bloody warehouse where I suffered. The woman removed her apron, revealing a white couture dress, resembling a pampered princess. Her delicate face was unlike my tortured and bloody state. I gasped quickly, my body trembling uncontrollably. I once mistakenly picked up my husband's call and knew about this dress. I thought it was a wedding anniversary gift from my husband, not realizing it was worn by his student. I believed my husband, who I thought loved me dearly and had no other intentions, would just embrace the woman, affectionately kissing her on the forehead. The woman blushed shyly. Full of love, she pulled down the man's neck affectionately. They passionately kissed, intertwined, reluctant to part. To the rhythm of the music, they danced the waltz that Mike and I danced every year, reliving our sweet memories. How cruel it was, while they were in a romantic moment, I was being tortured and killed in the dark warehouse. My blood froze, and the taste of betrayal made me scream in agony. I tried to separate the entwined couple but forgot that I was dead. My transparent hand went straight through them. I could only watch helplessly, watching their intimate embrace. In the midst of their intimacy, Bella bumped into a cabinet, causing a crystal ball to fall and shatter into pieces. She had shattered my mother's heirloom, the only thing left by my mother, more valuable to me than my life. Bella apologized tearfully to Mike, fearing my wrath upon my return. Though in tears, I could see the triumphant smile in her eyes, no hint of remorse. Destroying something important to others brought her pleasure. In an attempt to show innocence, she quickly crouched down to pick up the shards, but a sharp piece cut into her finger, blood oozing out. She bit her lip, helplessly and panic-stricken, looking at Mike, like an innocent deer. Mike furrowed his brows, sighing, eventually helping the woman up from the floor and taking her to the sofa. He took out the first aid kit to treat her wound gently. His handsome features under the warm yellow light seemed especially tender, showing no trace of blame. He only showed deep concern and tenderness. It was ridiculous. When I was being stabbed and tortured, he knew nothing, but he was so caring about Bella's tiny wound. Mike, with lowered brows, softly said, "It's all right. It's not something valuable. I know you didn't mean it. If Gloria comes back, just say I broke it." My heart sank. He knew the importance of that crystal ball to me. During our happy times, I shared the story of the crystal ball with him, telling him it was a keepsake from my late mother. Seeing my sad expression, he gently held my shoulders, saying, "Gloria, your aunt really loves you. Even though she's in heaven, maybe this crystal ball is her soul's epitome, always by your side." His youthful eyes shone with warmth and strength, giving me comfort. His words completely unlocked my heart. I was comforted by his words, deeply believing the crystal ball embodied my mother's spirit. Over the years, I would gaze at it silently, wiping off the dust, feeling like my mother was still by my side. However, now, Mike dismissed the importance of the crystal ball to spare another woman's guilt, saying it was not valuable or important. His words made a mockery of our 8 years of relationship and insulted my mother Bella. Upon hearing this, smiled through her tears, kissed Mike's cheek, eyes brimming with happiness. "Gloria, you're so good to me," said the woman, snuggling into Mike's arms, a satisfied smile that couldn't be concealed. Mike looked at the shattered glass for a while. After cleaning up the broken pieces, he sent a message to me, who had already passed away. "Darling, I accidentally broke that crystal ball. I'm sorry. When you come back, you can decide what to do with it." After some thought, the man added, "I was too busy in meetings during the day, that's why I didn't answer your call. Tomorrow is our 3rd wedding anniversary, is there anything you want?" "Whatever you want, husband will try to make it happen." If I hadn't seen him cheating with my own eyes, would never have imagined that this man would be having an affair with his student at home the day before our wedding anniversary. The lover broke something precious to me, and he casually took the blame. His pretending romantic gesture made me sick. A wave of nausea surged in my stomach, and I couldn't stop dry heaving. Bella, wearing my bathrobe, came out of the bathroom and shyly looked at Mike, whispering like a mosquito, "Do I look good, Mike?" "Very beautiful." The man's voice was hoarse as he untied the woman's bathrobe and carried her into our bedroom. I didn't want to watch this scene anymore. The feeling of my heart being torn apart made it hard to breathe. But my soul was forcibly drawn to watch. Every time I tried to run away, an invisible hand would grab my neck, forcing me to look back. I could only watch helplessly as my husband and another woman's bodies intertwined passionately on our once marital bed. Both of them had looks of affection on their faces, as if they had forgotten that the man in front of them was married. His wife had been generous to this woman. I hated them so much, wishing I could devour their flesh, drink their blood, and skin them alive. The wedding photo on the wall was particularly glaring, as if mocking the shattered promises. I still remember that day, the boy on one knee, looking at me nervously and tenderly, saying, "Gloria, will you marry me? I promise to always treat you well." The firm promise still echoed in my ears, as the taste of betrayal cut my heart into pieces, suffocating me almost. "Mike, have our promises become a joke long ago? How long have you deceived me like a fool?" I cried and screamed, wanting to run over and hit him, but in vain. After they were done, Mike lovingly put a beautiful pearl necklace on Bella and tenderly said, "Happy birthday." They laughed and frolicked, full of joy. And here I was, dying in loneliness while being discarded into the river. My tears flowed down my cheeks incessantly. As my husband celebrated his mistress's birthday, it was the day of my death. They enjoyed a candlelit dinner, waltzing, and reveling in their joy while I was being dismembered by sharp blades, feeling unbearably painful, dumped in the cold river. My eyes turned crimson, biting my lip lightly, consumed by hatred. I began to anticipate the moment he finds out that his wife was brutally murdered while he was celebrating with his mistress. It was he who snuffed out the last hope left in my life. Just the thought of his agony and collapse brought a sense of satisfaction to my heart. Bella cuddled in Mike's arms affectionately. Mike gently patted her shoulder from time to time, offering comfort. The two of them were inseparable, embracing in the warmth of the blanket. And here I was, as Mike's true wife, lying at the bottom of the cold river, unable to even recover my body. At that moment, Gloria remembered something, looking nervously at Mike. "Mike, Gloria called you this afternoon." I got nervous and hung up to avoid any exposure of our affair. "It shouldn't be urgent, right?" Mike retracted his arm and immediately picked up his phone to check, only to find a missed call. He called back, but there was no answer. The man frowned, looking puzzled and slightly worried. Bella, with eyes as red as a rabbit's in an instant, whimpered, "Mike, is it my fault?" "It's all my fault, I acted on my own. But today is my birthday, I just want to be a little indulgent." Unable to bear the guilt, Mike still embraced her. "It's okay, it's not your fault. You're just a little girl, you're definitely scared. Today is your birthday, so it's all up to you." His comforting demeanor reminded me of the times he consoled me when I failed a university test. He hugged me and told me not to blame myself, not to put too much pressure on myself. Now, as everything seemed to repeat itself, it all felt ironic. Mike said lightly, "Gloria probably just wanted to chat with me. It's okay that she hung up. I'll explain to her later." Bella, moved, once again untied her bathrobe. In my soulful state, I was shaking with anger as I was enduring unbearable pain. I even thought, perhaps it was just my ill fate, and that Mike was too occupied to answer my call. But the truth was, while I was seeking his help, he was busy having an affair with Bella. He chose to indulge Bella's birthday wishes, unknowingly shattering my hopes of survival. Overwhelming anger engulfed me, and every time I reached out my hand to strangle his neck, it just passed through his body lightly. In the end, I sat there gasping for air. I still remember the first time I saw Bella. She was a filthy little girl. Only her eyes showed defiance and discontent with her current life. That hint of defiance struck a chord in me, and the empathy of shared suffering made me unable to resist softening my heart and supporting her in her education. Over the years, I treated her like my own daughter, even advising my husband to take care of this sensitive girl when she enrolled in the university where he taught. Mike had some complaints about Bella, finding faults in her academic performance and deeming her too sensitive. I couldn't help but speak up for her. She came out of such a mess, achieving what she has, that's already remarkable. You shouldn't be so detached. Not everyone was born with a silver spoon in their mouth like you. Mike begged for forgiveness, apologizing and promising to take better care of her. Later, Mike's mentions of Bella became more frequent, mostly in a negative light. For instance, criticizing her poor performance in a particular course as foolish. Or how she couldn't even feed herself properly but went to feed stray cats, a pure saint. I didn't realize it at the time, but my husband was too caring towards her. Normally he's taciturn and not one to gossip about others. But now, every little detail, wasn't it a sign of his changing concern? Bella kept complaining to me, saying that Mike only has a good outer appearance, but is difficult to get along with in reality. I was at a loss for words, trying to advise both sides. Little did I know that this couple had long teamed up, conspiring behind my back, making me a laughingstock. When the child was brought back by the nanny, the two had already tidied up. Mike held the child, full of tenderness in his eyes, looking like a loving father. Bella eagerly took out a bottle to prepare formula for the child from the kitchen. The water had just boiled, but Bella immediately poured some to mix with the formula. The woman's eyes were full of malice, her lips curling up as she brought the scalding teat close to the child. As it got near, the uncomfortable temperature made the child cry loudly, while her lotus-like arms kept waving around. The child's heart-wrenching cries tore at my heart. This was my child, my beloved flesh and blood, connected to me by blood. Such scalding water could be lethal to a baby. It was clearly intentional. The woman's undisguised disgust and visible hostility in her eyes only confirmed it all. I wanted to splash the scalding water on her face, grab the kitchen knife and chop her. Watching my son cry and suffer, as a mother, feeling helpless, it drove me crazy. Bella, however, stubbornly tried to force the teat into the child's mouth, crying so much, "He must be hungry." The child's cries only made the corners of her lips rise higher, with an excited gleam in her eyes. "Good boy, don't fuss, drink up." The woman's gentle voice sounded like a devil's whisper. She wanted to harm my child. It was then that Mike sensed something wrong with the temperature of the bottle. Seeing this, Bella immediately changed her demeanor. She pouted in grievance, tears falling. "I'm so stupid, can't do anything right. I'm no match for Gloria in anything." Initially on the verge of getting angry, Mike sighed helplessly, fixing the baby's bottle. Patting the woman's shoulder soothingly, "Silly, you don't need to compare yourself to Gloria. You are you, unique. Besides, I'm here." Bella, with her tearful eyes looking up at Mike, full of envy, asked, "Can you stay with me forever?" She pouted in distress, "Without you, I really don't know what to do. I can't do anything right." Mike furrowed his brow, pursed his lips, hesitated for a moment, but eventually succumbed to the woman's pitiful gaze. The woman joyously rushed into Mike's arms. Mike held Bella with one hand, the child with the other, sounding both resigned and indulgent. "I'm defeated by you." The three of them were like a little family. Fury surged through me as I raged at Bella and lashed out at Mike. However, they remained unscathed, while I was left seething in anger. I dare not even imagine how she would treat our son, still young and vulnerable. Now, she was attempting to scald him. What would come next? What other vile methods would she come up with to abuse the child? I never thought that the story of the farmer and the snake would play out so vividly in my own life. I had sincerely supported the girl, only for her to shamelessly seduce my husband, with such malicious intent as to harm my child, and my husband, who had once cared for me endlessly and made promises of eternal love, ultimately succumbed to fresh temptations, betraying the promise between us. On the TV, a news report was playing. The host's voice sounded grieving. Recently, a vicious homicide took place in our city. The victim was brutally dismembered, with signs of torture. The perpetrator's brutality is truly appalling. As the forensic autopsy revealed, the victim was between the ages of 27 and 30, with clear marks of strangulation on the neck, and after dismemberment, the body was dumped in the river. The victim had made a distress call before their death, unfortunately unanswered. As the commentary went on, several blurred photos appeared on the screen. Despite the blurring, one could still see the bloated, decomposing pieces of the body, bearing deep marks left by a knife. She snuggled in her husband's arms, sounding disgusted. "This body looks so gross." Mike gently patted her back, reassuring her, "It's okay, I'm here. Don't look if it disgusts you." His comforting tone was familiar, reminiscent of when he would console me when I bumped into the table due to my night blindness. The young man, who once showered me with his love, would also angrily hit the table. I asked him, "What are you doing?" The young man replied indignantly, "I'm teaching the disobedient table a lesson for daring to hurt my wife." My heart felt like it was soaking in warm water, swollen and soft. And now, my husband was just as distraught over another woman. Except this time, it was over my lifeless body. He used to hold me close, knowing my body intimately, tracing the moon-shaped birthmark on my thigh repeatedly. My neck still bore the necklace he had given me. Yet, he couldn't seem to recognize it at all. Or perhaps it wasn't that he couldn't recognize it. His mind was entirely occupied by the warmth and tenderness of the woman in his arms. There was no inclination to spare a second glance at my lifeless body. However, that dead woman's necklace on her neck did look quite nice. Perhaps women have an inexplicable fascination with jewelry and clothing. Bella stared straight at the fox necklace around my neck, playing with her nails, cooing, "This necklace goes so well with the dress you gave me." Mike then shifted his focus to the necklace. At a glance, his expression seemed to blur, a hint of emotion flickering in his eyes. That was the gift Mike gave me when we first got together, accompanied by deep vows. "Gloria, no matter life or death, wherever you are, I'll always recognize you." It now seemed pale and ridiculous. A sense of unknown pleasure surged in my heart. Mike would eventually recognize me, knowing the helpless woman who was brutally murdered in the news reports was his wife. It was his affair that made him miss my cry for help, indirectly leading to my death. "Mike, do you think this necklace is pretty?" Bella asked as she tried to get his attention. Mike replied, "It's nice, but it's already a style from 5 years ago." As Mike looked complicatedly at the necklace, Bella curiously asked, "How do you know that?" Girls chirped like carefree birds, always full of energy. Staring at the crescent scar on the corpse, I felt fortunate not to have a birthmark like that. Girls were a bit dissatisfied with one-sided conversations, persistently asking Mike, "Isn't that right, Mike?" Mike didn't argue, and instead, he kissed the lips of the woman beneath him, avoiding the conversation. They passionately kissed on the sofa, while the screen displayed news of my death and the decaying corpse. In a way, it felt like they were embracing in front of my body. My death seemed to add to their excitement. And my son, still innocent, lay in his crib, unaware of the events unfolding before him. Another wave of discomfort hit my chest as intense emotions made me dizzy. I knelt by the table and retched. I used to feel inferior because of my birthmark. Mike kept kissing the birthmark on this woman, with stars sparkling in his eyes. "Wife, this birthmark is beautiful. It's Gloria's lovely mark." Although he said it was a beautiful mark, Mike didn't refute Bella when she called it ugly. Just then, Mike's phone rang, breaking the atmosphere. Bella, with misty eyes, unwilling to let go, kept trying to kiss Mike. The phone rang continuously, but Mike lost interest. He pushed Bella's hand away and got up from the sofa. His face regained its cold expression. Mr. Mike, have you seen the report? The deceased is your wife, Gloria. In that moment, his face turned pale, lips trembling violently. The man never thought the body he despised would turn out to be his wife. Ironically, before the report of his wife's death, he was entangled with his mistress. Shaking, pupils contracted from fear, Mike exclaimed, "No, it can't be." The composed man lost control. Like a grieving trapped animal. "I don't believe it. Don't spread rumors. How could it be my wife who died?" The person on the other end of the call stayed silent for a moment before sighing. "The autopsy report is out. Combining with the deceased's characteristics, it's mostly confirmed. I know this news hits you hard. Please accept my condolences. When can you come to the station? We need your cooperation for the investigation." After hanging up, Mike swept the things off the table to the floor, veins popping on his forehead. He sat on the ground like a broken man. On the TV screen, the commentary continued with "The last call I made for help," which was unfortunately disconnected. It played repeatedly like a haunting melody. Watching Mike's breakdown, I couldn't help but feel ridiculous and absurd. How could he not have thought about me when he was fooling around with his student for thrills? However, a sense of retaliatory pleasure couldn't help but rise in my heart. "Mike, you're also responsible for my death. While I suffered in a dark and damp warehouse, you were celebrating your birthday with your lover." As Mike stared into space, Bella approached and held him tightly. "Mike, you still have me. I'll always be with you." "Gloria?" My name seemed like a forbidden switch. Mike was suddenly enraged and pushed Bella to the ground, shouting, "Get out." Mike drove recklessly to the police station at 180 miles per hour, almost like a madman. Getting out of the car, he stumbled as the usually composed man lost his cool with red eyes. The police explained the situation to Mike and told him that my last call was to him. It was likely my cry for help. Unfortunately, Mike didn't answer my call. The police patted his shoulder, saying, "You didn't think about it, did you? Maybe it's fate after all." Hearing this, Mike collapsed, tears streaming down his pale face, shaking uncontrollably. He almost couldn't stand properly. His eyes filled with despair, he muttered, "It's not fate, it's my fault. I killed Gloria." And then he slapped himself repeatedly, quickly reddening his once handsome face. Mike didn't stop, continuing to punish himself. Only I knew what he meant. When I was begging for help, he was busy, not with school but with his affair. It wasn't fate, he had a chance. But at the moment I was tortured and close to death, he chose to spend a romantic and warm birthday with another woman. The inexperienced female police officer next to him whispered, "Mike and your wife had a really good relationship. The evil killer destroyed such a beautiful family. It's a sin deserving of death." I could see the envy in her eyes. Perhaps that's how people would see it. Such a handsome and wealthy man, grieving and breaking down after his wife's death, must have truly loved her. Since then, the handsome and wealthy man gained more depth and charm, which was even more irresistible to women. But who could have imagined that such a handsome and affectionate man would be entangled with his student in a passionate embrace when his wife called for help? The police couldn't stand by and tightly held on to Mike's hand. "Mr. Mike, we know losing your beloved wife is painful, but right now we need to find the killer and seek justice for your wife." These words seemed to ignite a spark of hope in Mike, who had been utterly defeated and broken before. He couldn't help but respond, "Yes, you're right. I will avenge Gloria." The police officer asked solemnly, "Does she have any enemies? Any conflicts with anyone?" Mike's face darkened, and he coldly replied, "Gloria was kind and friendly, hardly had any enemies. If I had to say, it would be her father, wicked stepmother, and brother." With the new lead, the police swiftly launched an investigation and headed straight to his father's house. My spirit was pulled along to follow. It was the place where I struggled with nightmares in my youth, and where I met my tragic end. Fate played its hand, whether I ultimately became a ghost or returned to this place. Horrific memories flooded my mind before my death. My half-brother, from a different mother, was caught using drugs by me, and when I tried to call the police, my biological father viciously strangled me with a rope and dragged me into the basement. The emergency call was hung up by my husband, and my biological father sliced my major artery open with a kitchen knife. My half-brother, filled with resentment, took over the knife and slashed at me repeatedly. The sharp blade cut through my body, and I could feel the intense pain it brought. Finally, I was put into a sack and thrown into the riverbed, the chilling cold seeping into my soul. With tears in my eyes, grinding teeth, I wished I could turn into a vengeful spirit and make these demons pay the price. The torment from my stepmother and the indifference of my father began long ago. My meals were always leftovers they didn't finish. My stepmother frequently beat me with a belt, enjoying my pain, and she would withhold education from me, calling me unworthy. The wicked stepmother even went against my wishes, dropping out of school on my behalf and tried to sell me to a middle-aged widower for money, squeezing out my last bit of value. At that time, Mike appeared like a godly figure and planted the seeds of affection in my heart. It was the beginning of our fate. Whenever I was bullied, Mike would shield me, declaring firmly, "Who dares to stop her from studying? It's illegal to deprive children of their right to education, you know?" My father, usually doting, immediately tried to please the privileged young man in his presence. The stepmother, accustomed to favoritism, was scolded harshly by my father. Every time Mike was around, he would reprimand my stepmother for mistreating me. He held my hand, leaving a gentle kiss and promising earnestly, "Don't be afraid, Gloria, I will always be your shield." The lingering pain from my original family made me hesitant to trust easily, keeping a stoic face. But Mike didn't mind, his eyes filled with pity, softening his sharp features. "Gloria, I will prove it to you," he said. Afterwards, he indeed kept his promise and always protected me. My stepmother dared not target me anymore. When I entered the classroom, there would always be a warm breakfast and milk waiting for me on my desk, each day with a different variety. When I received these items, the young man smiled brightly and beautifully. His private tutor shared the load with me, providing guidance for the questions which used to cause me difficulty, and my grades improved. After late-night self-study sessions, the young man would place his earphone in my ear, and we would silently listen to music on the way back. It was a rare moment of relaxation during the busy time in our senior year after the college entrance examination. I agreed to the young man's confession. It's hard for anyone to resist such a handsome and affectionate young man. I was just an ordinary person, so I couldn't resist, especially after 3 years of mutual companionship and care. In the following years, I always believed I hadn't chosen the wrong person. But never did I expect the person I thought brought light into my life would drag me into a dark swamp. The man who claimed he would die without me was caught in a passionate affair with another woman when I died. The police obtained a search warrant and entered my father's house to search. The trio's blatant guilt had been exposed. Attempting to remain composed, my stepmother asked, "What are you doing here?" "We are here to investigate a murder case," the police said, showing the evidence found in the basement. After DNA comparison, it confirmed it was my blood. Realizing the game was up, with irrefutable evidence, they stopped resisting. Sinking into a chair, my stepmother looked at Mike and sneered, "You claim to be so devoted, protecting her since adolescence. This little bitch managed to call you before she died, but you hung up." Mike's face turned ashen, his lips trembling, unable to utter a word. As the younger brother realized there was no escape, he viciously lashed out with a knife. "Let me tell you, that bitch had a gruesome death. I chopped her numerous times with a kitchen knife, like when preparing pork. The blood spurted everywhere, but she didn't even get to wait for you to save her." Tauntingly pulling the corners of his mouth, his brother continued, "You obviously don't care about her anymore. I knew it. She was missing for days, and you didn't even seem worried." Mike, suddenly enraged like a provoked beast, roared, "Shut up." He violently gripped his brother's neck. "You, the murderer. I want you to pay with your life. How dare you?" "Gloria," my Gloria choked with sobs. He called out my name repeatedly. Seeing his brother's oxygen-deprived face turning purple, the police hurried over to intervene. Mr. Mike, please stay calm. We understand your pain in losing your wife. Don't act rashly, the law will punish the killer. Always proud and arrogant Mike, but now he softened, squatting on the ground, crying uncontrollably. His voice trembled with sadness. I am also a sinner. My spirit floated in the air, looking down at him, seeing his sorrowful and regretful appearance. No pity, only resentment and disdain. The current Mike was already tainted, no longer the single-minded youth he used to be. Moreover, he even entangled passionately with a female student in front of our son. At this moment, Bella, wearing a white dress, rushed into the police station, her heartache clouding her judgment. The woman directly embraced Mike's waist, tears in her eyes as she said, I will be with you and the child instead of Gloria from now on. Just after his wife's death, someone new came knocking. This confusing statement made the people at the police station react differently, undoubtedly not embarrassment and disdain. The stepmother taunted, I knew it, he must have changed his heart, playing around quite a bit. No wonder this little bee ignored her pleas for help. Seems like things have heated up with the new flame. I just wanted to rush over and strangle Bella. I can give her the man who has been tainted, but how dare this despicable woman think she can take away my son? Mike wiped away his tears with a handkerchief, stood up from the ground, straightened his back, and resumed his former calm and composed demeanor. Leave, don't appear in front of me again, he said coldly, a warning in his eyes. Don't talk about replacing Gloria, you're simply not worthy. Bella looked at him, hurt, wanting to say something but hesitated because of the others present, and walked away unsteadily. Even though their scandal was not openly exposed, the recent incident made it clear to everyone what had happened. The scandal between the university professor and the student sparked a lot of talk, not to mention that the professor's wife used to be this student's benefactor. This retribution drama successfully humiliated Bella and led to her expulsion from the school. Mike, because of his wealthy background, was not expelled, but he still voluntarily left. How could someone who was usually so proud handle such public scrutiny? After the incident, Mike locked himself at home all day, looking disheveled for a man who used to be so well-groomed. His hair was messy, his chin had stubble, and 2 dark circles hung beneath his eyes. He couldn't eat or drink, just hugging the shards of a glass ball and piecing them together one by one. Even if the glass cut into his hands, causing them to bleed profusely, he seemed to feel no pain. Gloria, I've put the glass ball back together, can you come back to me? He whispered, Gloria, we promised to be together forever, how am I supposed to live out the rest of my life? His voice sounded like weeping, but it felt insincere to me. At night, I found myself in Mike's dream. The moment he saw me, tears streamed down his face, staring at me intensely, fearing I would disappear. Gloria, did you come back to see me? He asked in a pleading tone. I know I wronged you, but I truly didn't realize that call was a matter of life or death for you. I scoffed, interrupting his defense. If you knew that call was a matter of life and death for me, you wouldn't have been fooling around with Bella in our bed, losing your mind to lust, would you? How could you say such disgusting things? Are you telling me that if my life wasn't in danger, your affair would be forgivable? Mike's eyes turned red, looking at me helplessly and sadly. It was just a fleeting thing with her. Gloria, I only truly love human, already desperate, could only repeat apology sentence by sentence, weakly trying to explain. Men, they're all prone to making these mistakes. The heart and desire aren't in sync. No man can resist temptation and excitement once the passion fades. Enough. In the dream, I finally could slap him hard. Every word Mike said disgusted me to the core, even making me wonder if I had been blind to fall for such a selfish and hypocritical man. Through clenched teeth, I said, Mike, you make me sick to my stomach. Meeting you and being with you is the biggest regret of my life. I turned my words into a sharp knife, stabbing into his chest, and hurting myself in the process. When you and her shamelessly entangled in the bedroom, in the living room, I was always there. I wanted to cover my ears, cover my eyes, because it was truly nauseating. Do you really love me? You never even thought of me when you did all those things, did you? You only cared about your own excitement. Even neglecting our son, indulging in such filthy and repulsive acts with her. I regret being with you, and our son will feel ashamed to have a father like you. Mike shook his head in disbelief, breathing heavily. Gloria, Gloria. He called my name solemnly, ending in a self-pitying plea. Gloria, I know you probably don't want to forgive me. Can I come down to be with you? I chuckled. You still find me repulsive? You want to continue repulsing me? What did I do to you that was so wrong? I firmly said, Mike, for all eternity, I don't wish to see you again, alive or dead. It seemed like my son sensed something. His young and tender crying pierced my heart. My maternal instinct made me want to embrace and take care of him, but I couldn't do anything. I was already dead. But I couldn't trust Mike to take care of him. So, I decided to entrust Lily with a dream. Lily and her mom had a deep sisterly bond, and over the years, she had been caring for me. Besides, as she couldn't have children herself, she had always wanted to adopt a child. I believed she would take good care of my son. After deciding, I informed Mike, I will let my sister take the child away. He's also my son. He doesn't have a father like you, who are so irresponsible. After saying that, my spirit dissipated little by little, as if my time was up. Mike broke down, holding my hand tightly, but could only watch helplessly as I became more and more transparent. Gloria, he called out in sorrow. Don't call me Gloria, you don't deserve to. I said coldly, becoming calm. If given a chance to go back to the beginning, just at that moment when Mike called me, I would turn around and walk away. Some people, their absence in life is already the greatest gift. Later, as my son was taken away from Mike, he wasn't allowed at my funeral. Mike completely lost his mind, kneeling in front of my portrait for a long time. He kept stabbing himself with a knife, even cutting off a few fingers. He kept hitting his body with an iron rod, bleeding profusely but refusing to stop. He murmured like a lost soul, Gloria, I apologize to you, it must have been painful for you then. Unfortunately, there were no responses anymore.